Hey there, today I'm going to be breaking down Ahsoka's, Bo-Katan's, and the Clan Kryze character and stance cards to hopefully give you an idea of how they'll play on the table and some cool synergies for you to try out. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. It is Shatterpoint time. The full rules are out, so we can finally begin to really appreciate what all of these revealed characters are going to be capable of, which is really fun and exciting. I've even gotten a few proxy games under my belt, so I know at least a little bit about what I'm talking about. As we jump in, I want to go ahead and acknowledge the poll on whether to do the How to Play in 4 Minutes or Less series, or start on the character reviews, or something in between, and it was a surprisingly split poll, so I'm going to be doing some alternating, but mostly sticking to the How to Play series, since we only have the info for 4 squads at the moment anyways. So expect that to start coming next week. With that said, let's jump into Ahsoka Tano, Jedi No More. She is a primary unit of 1 from the Clone Wars era that provides 8 squad points and 3 force. She has 9 stamina and a durability rating of 3. She has 4 total abilities on her card. The first is an active Force Speed. It will cost 1 force, but allows her to advance, making her extremely mobile and basically doubles her movement speed, potentially letting her get to where the struggle needs her to be. This will also let her get rid of a pinned condition without burning an action, depending on what kind of situation you are in. Her first reactive ability is What's the Matter? Too Fast For Ya. It has the hefty cost of 2 force, but with it comes quite the powerful effect. It says when Ahsoka would suffer damage from a melee attack, she can use this ability. Ahsoka suffers half of the total damage in the damage pool, which, as a reminder, is rounded up. Then the attacking unit suffers the remaining damage. So it'll probably be in your best interest to keep her and the melee heavy hitters on the same side of the board if you're playing Ahsoka, because being able to not only reduce the damage of one of Anakin's or Maul's massive attacks by half, but then also giving them the other half of that damage is amazing. And if you thought that you could just plank her down with ranged attacks, then, well, you aren't wrong, just know that you'll be taking some punishment for your attacks. Deflect is a reactive power that doesn't have a force cost to start, that she can use whenever she is targeted by a ranged attack. As long as the attacker rolled at least 1 failure result, they suffer 2 damage. Which, just seems real nice for her. Finally, we have her identity ability, which is just a fancy innate ability really, but it's really fancy. Fierce Protector says that when an enemy character wounds another allied unit, after the effect is resolved, Ahsoka may advance toward the enemy character that caused the effect. Then she may either recover 3 or make a 5-die melee attack that targets the enemy that caused the wound. Recover 3 is awesome because it can either restore a third of Ahsoka's stamina back or get rid of some nasty conditions like disarm or exposed that cause her to ignore expertise charts on attacks or defense respectively. Not to mention that it also works on allied characters within range 2 of where she ends up. A 5-die attack isn't something that will always push through a lot of damage depending on the target, but depending on the stance you are in, it could let you shove the enemy off of a point during your opponent's turn, which is always a powerful effect. With that in mind, let's take a look at her stances. Her more defensive stance that I would recommend starting the game out in is Form 5. It gives her 7 defense dice against ranged attacks and 6 against the close range attackers, and only lets her swing back with 6 attack dice as well. The combat tree here isn't really about dealing damage though, but rather some healing and a lot of repositioning. The potential of 3 successes on the bottom track of shoving an enemy, then jumping to reposition to get another shove off, is going to get a lot of people off of objectives that might have been safe otherwise. The other notable thing is that her defensive expertise chart only needs 1 result to give you a block and to reduce an enemy crit into a hit. Then 2 will give you an extra block along with a jump. So the attack expertise is admittedly pretty sad, since you need 4 expertise to hit the second rung with 2 crits, and that's 2/3 of your attack dice. Thankfully, Jarkai helps Ahsoka out there. Both of her defenses drop down to 5, but in exchange her attack goes up to 7 dice. The results of her 2 expertise charts mostly stay the same, but the amount of expertise needed to climb the attack chart is slightly reduced, while the climb on the defense chart is a bit harder. The combat tree itself, though, is all damage and conditions. On a really good roll, you can max out at 9 damage and leave them with a couple of conditions. But even a more average roll should leave you with 6 damage and a disarm. So all in all, Ahsoka seems like she is going to be a great objective holder. Her ability to advance twice is huge when it comes to getting around the board and getting to those more valuable points in the second and third struggle, even if the first one only becomes a dash to get her out of engagement range in the first place. Not to mention an out-of-activation advance, where if she is close enough, she can get on the point that your opponent just cleared to make sure you retain control of that objective. Attacking Ahsoka with range attacks while she is in Form 5 just honestly feels like a really dumb thing for your opponent to do, because she'll damage them back, and you probably aren't getting too much against you unless they just spike out on the crits, because you're getting to cancel one of their crits and you're rolling 7 defense dice base. Then her attacking in melee, while she has some force points, is also something that your opponent isn't going to enjoy if they're bringing heavy hitters. You won't want to use too fast for you on some smaller attacks, but when a big hitter comes in, they probably don't really want to target her with all of the abilities they could. So she'll be able to hold points down pretty well, all in all. With great mobility and defensive tech comes the cost, though, of reduced damage output for herself. Jar Kai will let her get off some solid damage, but she doesn't quite stack up in the way that Maul or Annie does when it comes to clearing people off of objective points. But oddly enough, Maul and her former master aren't going to want to be on the same point as her in general. The last thing I will mention is that Ahsoka doesn't have any built-in synergies with any one group. She can benefit from synergies with the Galactic Republic, but because she doesn't offer up any herself, she'll make a great versatile character who can be splashed with other unit types when you're looking for an extra mobile primary character. Her second-in-command that AMG kind of pushes toward us, though, is Bo-Katan Kryze. She costs 4 points, doesn't provide any force, and is a single-base secondary unit from the Clone Wars era with 8 stamina and a durability of 2. She has a lot of keywords, including Clan Kryze, Death Watch, Mandalorian, and Night Owls. She also has a whopping 5 abilities. First is her tactical Pride of Mandalore. Tacticals are another form of fancy innate abilities, but these are distinguished because it is always resolved at the start of that character's activation. With that said, Pride of Mandalore will let Bo-Katan choose another allied Mando character, and that character may perform a jump. While this doesn't have a range attached to it, which is awesome, it does only allow one character to jump, not a unit, so you can't go too crazy with it. And don't worry, Bo-Katan will never feel left out because she too can jump around with her very own jetpack. It is an active ability that costs 1 force, but will let her perform the jump movement to navigate terrain a little bit more easily and just generally add to her mobility. Her only reactive ability is Mandalorians are stronger together. It won't cost anything until she gets beat up on, and triggers whenever she makes a move action that ends within range 2 of an allied Mando character. She then gets to make a focus action. It is worth mentioning that her jetpack ability won't trigger stronger together because it is not a move action, unfortunately. However, this ability on its own is really good if you were keeping your Mandos close because, well, they really like their focuses. Bo-Katan especially because her first innate ability is Mandalore will survive. It says after this unit makes a focus action, she may dash and recover 2. So she gets another way to get in a dash, can either heal or remove conditions from herself, or help out some of the nearby Mandalorian crew. Her final innate ability is Some of Us Serve a Higher Purpose. Allied Mandalorian characters within range 3 of this unit that are contesting an active objective have both protection and steadfast. Protection, reducing the damage pool of attacks by 1, and Steadfast, letting you ignore the first shove from the combat tree of an attacker. And because this ability doesn't say other, she'll benefit from this herself, making her a little bit tougher and harder to get off of the point. As for her stance, we have close support. Her ranged attack will have a range of 4, rolling 6 dice, while her melee attacks roll 7, and she's going to be rolling 4 defense dice regardless of what is coming at her. As far as her expertise goes, her attack expertise is the same for both the ranged and close combat, and probably leaves you hoping for at least 2 expertise to get that crit in. Her defensive expertise, though, is very welcome, as even just 1 expertise will result in 2 blocks. The downside to this is that unless all of your dice roll expertise, the rest of those results are just kind of wasted. The combat tree, though, is all about damage and mobility, with plenty of shoves farther down in the tree, along with an easy-to-get-to jump. Not that she will always get it, but if she does manage 3 or 4 chains in her tree, she'll have about as much control as Ahsoka does in her Form 5 stance, which is, again, really good. And I don't think I can really go in deep about how Bo-Katan plays without talking about her clan Kryze Mandos, since 3 of her 5 abilities need or work with other Mandalorians. These guys also cost 4 squad points and don't provide any force, but they are a 2-character unit from the Clone Wars era. They have a seemingly low 7 stamina and 2 durability, and they have a lot of the same keywords as Bo-Katan, but lose Night Owls in exchange for Trooper. And the similarities don't end there. Their first 2 abilities, Jetpack and Mandalorians Are Stronger Together, are the exact same as Bo-Katan's, so I'm not going to go into too much detail there. But I do want to point out that because of how Stronger Together is worded, the Clan Kryze Mandos can trigger this off of each other in case Bo-Katan is elsewhere. They also have the innate helmet visor, which gives characters in this unit Sharpshooter 1, meaning that whenever they focus, instead of getting 1 extra die on their next attack, they will get 2 for the next ranged attack, which you know is really nice since it'll be very easy for these guys to get the focus action off. Their stance is Skirmish Tactics, which provides a range 4 6-die attack along with a 5-die melee attack. They'll get 5 defense against ranged attacks and 4 against melee, further indicating that these guys want to stay out of arm's reach so they can get some effective shots in from range. Their Beskar isn't quite as nicely fitted as Bo-Katan's, needing more expertise to get the 2 blocks, but are just as pushy as her with their combat tree. They also offer up a good number of conditions to put out, as they can easily pin and relatively easily expose or disarm, setting up your opponent's characters for failure. So, not quite as punchy as Bo-Katan, but the supporting characters will be able to put out some debilitating attacks that will also force your opponent to reposition. I mean, the dream is being able to pin them and still get 2 shoves to completely force them off a point and make it really hard to get back, but that's just my opinion. Circling back to Bo-Katan, she is fully on board the Mando synergy train, not just for the sake of her own free focus after a move, but providing steadfast and protection is fantastic. Somewhat oddly, she wants to be contesting a fought-over point with some Mando friends to really get her synergies going, while the rest of the Clan Kryze wants to stay back and take pot shots. Giving up an 8-die ranged attack for a 5-die melee doesn't feel great. So you may want to pair Bo-Katan with the Mandalorian Super Commandos, who want to be up in the fight, while the Clan Kryze hold back with Gar Saxon, who has his own sharpshooter tricks. All in all, Ahsoka makes a great primary character for the Mandos, since she doesn't have any built-in synergies for any one keyword, and honestly, her and Bo-Katan both play a very similar style of mobility and pushes, with a bit of damage sprinkled in for a good control game that also has some defensive tech that will let them hold down those points really well. But that's my thoughts on this squad from the core set. I want to give a quick shout out to my sponsors if you are shopping for your mini stuff online. Anyways, consider using these stores to support a local game store that hosts game nights and a place to play for their local players. If you're in the UK, you can shop at Tritex and use the code TRITEXGGCP5 at checkout for an extra 5% off, and if you use that on a pre-order item like well, all of Shatterpoint, it'll save you a total of 25% off of retail. If you're in the US, head to gamechefs.org and use the code GamersGuild, no spaces, to save an extra 15% off of their already discounted prices, which comes out to a really good bargain on your end. And I'll say reach out to them because I know their pre-orders aren't always up on the store and they'll be able to get you hooked up. I will say though, however, if you are shopping from your own LGS, just keep supporting them. We all understand and even appreciate that. And with that, I want to say thanks to the members of the Guild Hall who are supporting the channel and podcast on Patreon with your contributions. Seriously, guys, thank you for helping us grow into not just one, but 2 podcasts now, with more things coming down the line. So, and to those who are still watching, thank you for watching. And until next time, keep on gaming.